Ẹ mà lẹ́ níbẹ̀ yẹn ò nílé lóko. Ẹ sì kú dédé àsìkò yìí. Hello everyone, it's Adirunke again. I hope your day is going well. Today I'd like to talk about the word Alubarika. Alubarika. And the fact that it's not a Yoruba word. If you've lived in Nigeria or you live in Nigeria, you may have heard the word at least once. Wa Lalubarika. At least once. But it's not a Yoruba word, it's actually Arabic. It's a mispronunciation of the Arabic word Al-Barka. Al-Barka. So it's a pronunciation of these. Some people say Al-Barka, like that. I've seen both spellings anyway. Al-Baraka may actually be closer. Al-Baraka. Al-Barka. I don't have the proper pronunciation, but I know that this is how it's often written. Alubarika is quite obviously not a Yoruba word for blessing. It's so obvious. Anybody rational thinking, observing Yoruba person who breaks Alubarika down would immediately detect that if treated like an original word, like it often is, it doesn't make sense, let alone mean blessing. If you break Alubarika down, there would be the theme that Lu is bit, Ba is meat, Ri is see, Ka is count or recount. So if you treat it as an original Yoruba word that came from Yoruba people and you look at it for what it is, then what it's telling you is the thing that is beaten and met and seen and counted or recounted, that doesn't even make sense. The thing that is beaten and met and then seen and then recounted is rubbish. So for anybody who at any point in their lives has taken the time to look at words in and of themselves, like I often encourage, however annoyingly may be for some, would immediately detect that that can't possibly be from us. Something is off here. For a word that is supposed to mean blessing, it has to at least make some sense, and that doesn't make sense. Al-Baraka in Arabic makes sense, and Al-Baraka, because that's their language, it makes sense in and of itself to them. I think it relates to water, like I've said earlier, but there are other meanings to pond, but there are other meanings that it has. It has the word Al-Baraka has homonymous tendencies as well, from what I've seen, but I don't want to do in and of itself Arabic. I don't even speak Arabic, so I would not be looking too much into that. Anybody, like I said earlier, who looks at words in and of themselves can easily tell that Alubarika is not from us, let alone mean blessing. If it's not that, it could also be Alubarika. If it's not Alubarika, then it could be Alubarika, and that doesn't make sense either. It would be the thing that is beaten and met to see wickedness. I put wickedness in quotation marks because Ika in and of itself does not mean wickedness. Ka is to recount, to count, to tell. So it's like something that is done that one has to recount. The way that it has been used centuries before now suggests that it has become a way of describing something that it was not supposed to be done, something that you have to recount, that you have to tell, that you have to confess. Let me use the word confess just because of what I'm driving at. Confess. The thing that is done that one has to confess, that one has to recount. Alubarika. That can't possibly be blessing, can it? It seems so nonsensical and so far from anything that could possibly mean blessing. What am I saying in essence? It is as a result of not imbibing the culture of breaking words down and looking at what they are telling us in and of themselves. It is because of not having that culture that we still have a lot of like words being thrown around. If you say Àlùbáríkà properly in a Yoruba statement and you want to code mix Yoruba and Arabic, that's fine. But if you're saying Alubarika and you're pronouncing it like a Yoruba word and you're treating it like it came from your ancestors when it did not, then that's a problem. That's ignorance and that's a problem. I'd like to encourage us to look at what our words are telling us in and of themselves by breaking them down rather than just treating them like whole nouns. What happens is, and this is one of the things that show that English and Yoruba are quite completely separate languages. The way that English works, a lot of English, more than 70% of English words are borrowed. So it's typically some German word or some Latin word that metamorphosized into something else. Plat. Maybe platus would become plat, and plat would become plate. From Greek to French to Latin, from Latin to Greek to French to English. Platus, plat. And then, so it would not really make much sense to break it down like that, because it's not necessarily made up of, it may not necessarily be made up of a specific verb or a specific adjective, or it's just impossible. So that is, perhaps if the English language was like that and they had taught us the culture of breaking words down in our European schools, maybe we would have adopted that in our approach to our own language. But that's not how things work in English. It's typically one word that just metamorphosizes. It doesn't necessarily contain a verb or an adjective or anything. It's just something that becomes. So that's why we don't do that. But for Yoruba, we typically have noun makers that combine with verbs or combine with adjectives to form nouns. So rather than just treating words like, oh, this is a noun, there's nothing else to see there, we should adopt the culture of breaking words down, listening and observing what they're telling us, so that we can determine if they make sense or not, and if we need to throw them out or retain them. Àlùbáríkà, like I said, is good. I think it actually has a really beautiful meaning. I just didn't have the time to dig that deep. At least I got as far as saying that it has something to do with ponds and water as well. So I didn't get past that. But from what I've seen so far, I think it's a really beautiful word in its original language. Alubarika, on the other hand, whatever that is, because it doesn't even sound as similar to the Arabic version as possible, doesn't make sense, especially if you're treating it like a Yoruba word. So it's just something to keep in mind. Let's correct that. There are so many words that relate to blessing in Yoruba in one way or another. If you don't say ire, you would say anikun. So ire, anikun, Ibukun as well. There are actually some that we've lost as well, that I've probably only heard like once or something. That what it relates to is blessing, but the old people that used to say it no longer around, so it's really hard to remember. It's hard to remember. But even in certain dialects, again, this is the Oyo dialect. Even in other dialects like the Ondo, there are words that also mean blessing, that could also relate to blessing, to blessing. Let's use Ibukun as like what is the word for it? Let's just observe one of the words for blessings. Ibukun. Ibukun. And let's see what the ancestral idea of a blessing is, rather than the thing that is beaten and is met and is seen and is discovered and is wickedness, whatever rubbish the Yorubanized version sounds like. Ibukun. Ibukun. I is the noun maker here. So the thing that is, bu is to pour. It's a contronym because it could be to take from, and it could also be to pour in, depending on the context. So it's a contronym. It's a word that can be used as the exact opposite of itself. That's just one thing to keep in mind. It is because of the word kun that we have an idea that it is pour. If it was something, if I say bunibe, take from there. Take from there. The nibe that comes after lets me know that in that case, rather than pour it there, I'm probably saying is take it from there. It's because of the kun that we know that this is pour, to pour something in rather than take it out, because of what kun is. Kun is fill. Kun is fill. Ibukun would be the thing that is poured in, probably even better. The thing that is poured in to fill, or the thing that is poured in and fills. I didn't put the in here, but just imagine that it's there. The thing that is poured in to fill, the thing that is poured in and fills. So that's the idea of bless. It's a really practical language, isn't it? It's a really practical way of putting words together. Imagine you have something. Imagine you have a cup and you have like a bigger something, and you pour it from here to there until this fills up. That is the mental image of Ibukun. That is the ancestral mental picture that they've painted for us as what Ibukun is, as what a blessing is, using the word Ibukun. The kun here suggests that it's something that fulfills something. So whether it's a need that is being fulfilled or a desire, when you pour until it's filled, it's fulfilled. Almost literally, because of the word fill. The thing that fulfills, that is the ancestral thought regarding what a blessing is. It fulfills a need, it fulfills a desire. The practical mental picture is you pour something that is poured. Let's say this is my cup. And it's filled up until it is filled. And it probably can't take any more even. Not necessarily until it overflows and wastes. That would be anibudano, probably, when you have something that it has to be given out. It's too much. Anibudano. That's a closer word for that one. But that will probably be different. If you're trying to frame, anibudano works anyway if you're trying to frame it as, positive thing, but that's not really what Ibukun is saying. Ibukun is you have something is poured in until it is filled. Something is poured in until this is filled. Until a lack, a need, your life, something is filled. The thing that is poured to fill. I'm pretty sure it's much deeper than that. If you really look at it for what the word is really saying, it's a pity that we've been disconnected from original ancestral ideas about how the world works. But if I'm just going to say what I can and let you think about it on your own, Ibukun is The thing that is poured to fill. Sporty. The fact that kun, if it was just ibu, or actually in that case it would probably be abu, something that is poured. It would just have a half meaning, abusi or something like that. It would just be something that is poured in. But I'm really interested in the fact that kun was included, which is to feel. So there's a satisfaction thing associated with it. Something is satisfied. A need is satisfied. A want is satisfied. A lack is satisfied. Something is satisfied. Perhaps if you already have, which is what I've been thinking about, it's really hard for me to put it into the proper words, but I'm going to try. Which means that if you already have more than enough, if you're not really lacking something, then it may not really be Ibukun, it may be wastage. So if you already have, all the money in the world or something, you can't have all the money in the world too. That's another thing. Because that one is an insatiable need or insatiable want, actually, not a need. But if you already have something and something is already filled, then it doesn't really fulfill you. It's just, another car, park it in the garage. Another house, okay, put the key in the living room. It's not really fulfilling. It's not really fulfilling you in any way because you already have too much of it anyway. So I'm just trying to connect to the ancestral idea regarding why kun has to be included. Kun, because kun may not necessarily relate to overflow, but it relates to something being filled, even to the brim. So there has to be some kind of lack there for it to actually be a blessing. So even if it is not full, even if you already have a lot, say you already have something and it's literally from here to here, just that making it another direction that it could go would be to treat kun as had to rather than feel. Because it could also be that, I don't know what video it was that I mentioned it, maybe my Yoruba lessons for beginners series. I was talking about tones quite briefly and words, and using this for instance, bu has the do tone. So it suggests, if you're going to think of it as scoop from, it suggests it has that low scooping thing, do. It has that low thing, going low to scoop. And if you're going to pour something in, it's going down as well. Like, how it means that thing is going in the down direction as well. So that do thing is there. And then kun, you're adding to something, or you're filling it up, so that thing is rising. So, and it's honored with that mi tone. It goes high, mi kun. But this is like level 5 Yoruba. After this level is the esoteric Yoruba, and with that one you can actually even you can go really, really in depth and start to. This even has nothing to do with spirituality. You can start to study tones and the vibrations that they make when you group words together like that, and the effects that they have with those tones, with how high or low, with how I don't want to use the word manipulate because it sounds like such a bad word, but how you're interacting with the atmosphere, especially for manifestation and all that. That is not beginner level, but you can, with just looking at tones for what they are, you can see that this one is going low, this one is rising, But anyway, if you're going to think of kun as to simply had to rather than feel, which is really indeed another meaning that it could have, not just something made up. It could also be, mo fi kún owó ọwọ́ ẹ. I added to the money that you have. Simply just be had to. It's not every time that kun is used in the context of feeling. They are not completely mutually exclusive too. Think of this being like a huge calabash or something, and somebody goes to the river, gets water, and starts to pour it in. They start to add to it. They may add to it to the point that this is filled. So maybe one comes after the other. Maybe to add to something comes before, filling it up, because it has to, be filled for you to regard it as filled. But they are not completely dissimilar. So I suppose that's why they kind of share the word. Both meanings share the word kun. But anyway, if you look at Ibukun as that, then it would be the thing that is poured to add to something else. The thing that is poured with the bu being there if you want to ditch the thing that is poured, you can just say the thing that is added to something else. But I really think you should leave it in the thing that is poured to add to something else. So that could be another meaning that it could have. With this one, however, it doesn't have that satisfactory quality to it. That satisfaction thing is not really emphasized if you think of it in this way. The thing that is poured in, if you want to include in, to add to something else. So it just adds to. And I think our ancestors and with the way that they use words, especially words that are homonymic, they craft it in such a way that at the surface level you say, okay, yeah, this is what it is. But if you look further, then there's level 2 to that thing. So apart from the fact that they were, now we would say, okay, they were esoteric, but it was just how they thought. Like, they were philosophic, maybe I should say. Maybe it's a better way for it, because to say esoteric suggests that it was something that was some, what some people did in some corner, and it wasn't necessarily done on a daily basis. Remember, this was how they lived. So they were pretty philosophical and pretty analytical about things. At the surface level, you have the thing that is added to, something, to a person, to a person's list of properties, or to a person's life, or to a person's list of opportunities. You think, yeah, that very simply and very practically defines what a blessing is, without all the mushiness of that it may involve. I don't know where the word blessing came from. Now I'm interested, because I like to see if there's anything that is worthy of note there. It was borrowed from the, it has Latin sources, to praise or worship. Okay, so this definitely has something to do with the church, the Catholic Church, perhaps because of the benedicaire. I don't know how to say, but you should perhaps this word also relates to benediction. But anyway, to praise or worship is what the English version is. So it's clear that they are not the same. That, based on the root of that word, of the word blessing, yeah, they don't really have much in common. To worship, to praise, not necessarily. Anyway, back to my point. I was trying to say, at the surface level, you may just think, oh, the thing that is added to something else, that's it. Just, oh, you bought another car that has been added to you, you know. But there's also that satisfaction thing that is being discussed, that is being pointed to at the level 2 of the word. The thing that is added, that is poured in, to fill, to satisfy, to fulfill something. If indeed you are lacking that thing, then it fulfills you, you know, like I mentioned earlier. Then this kun would be to fulfill for you. Then it has more meaning, it brings you more joy. But if it's just something that is added to, it is a blessing, yes. It's not a curse and it's not a loss. But, you know, is it? Does it really satisfy? Suppose that's the ancestral lesson with this one word. It's, look at this other Ibukun, this one that is on this slide, relates to Anikun as well. It's like a synonym of Anikun, something that you have that may either, the kun in Anikun as well, may either just, you know, be added to you as just another thing of the list of, on the list of things that you have that you may never touch, that you're not necessarily happy or sad about. You're just like really numb to it because you now have too much and you're tired of it and you want to experience something else. Either that, or you indeed lack that thing and having it in your life has brought you some form of fulfillment, however little. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not going to overemphasize it for you. I'm just going to let you give it some thought on your own, you know. This is just one of words like this. When you ditch the borrowed words, the unnecessarily borrowed words, and you in fact embrace the proper words that our ancestors formed, that have some form of meaning, rather than the thing that is beaten and is punched and is met and is coincided and is nodded so that it can be wicked. Rather than that, if you look at what our words are saying, you know, if you're going to code mix, that's fine. We code mix with English, why not code mix with Arabic or with French? But if you're going to treat it like an original Yoruba word, then you should at least know what it is when you say it. I know that people like to argue when I make videos like this because it's so uncomfortable. Why break words down? Do we break English words down? And there's always one question being thrown at me, one really weird question, you know. But you really should give it some thought and know where the word is from and know the proper words for that word. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. A big thank you to my patrons and my YouTube members. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you to Eduardo, who is my Alashe supporter, for everything. And I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day and bye for now.